The first time I saw my wife hold another man, rain was turning the windshield into moving glass. I was parked across the street from the Harbor Inn, a low brick motel off Route 31 with a neon sign that buzzed even in daylight. At 7:43 on a Thursday night, Claire stood under the weak yellow light behind the office, her coat soaked to the shoulders, facing a man I had never seen before. He was older than us. Gray hair, work boots, a brown jacket darkened by rain. Then he handed her a yellow envelope. Claire pressed it to her chest like it hurt to touch. The man said something. She shook her head. Then he stepped forward and put his arms around her. My hand was on the key in the ignition. I remember the small teeth of it biting into my palm because I was gripping it so hard. I did not get out. I drove home before she did, set my keys on the kitchen table, and made coffee I never drank. By the time Claire came through the door, my cup had gone cold. She closed the door quietly, hung her coat instead of dropping it, set her bag down as if it were full of breakable things. When she came into the kitchen, her eyes were red, but she smiled. "You're still up," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She nodded like there was not a motel between us. A yellow envelope, a man with his hands on her back. "I'm going to shower." I wanted to ask who he was. I wanted to ask why she had lied about being at school. Instead, I said, "Okay." She lingered for half a second, waiting for the version of me who would always ask if she wanted tea. When he did not show up, she went upstairs. I sat there listening to the pipes knock in the wall. Before all of this, our life had been the kind no one makes movies about. That was what I loved about it. I tuned and repaired pianos for churches, schools, old theaters, and bars that still kept a baby grand in the corner, even though no one had played it sober since 1988. I liked work that could be heard when it was done right and noticed only when it was wrong. Claire taught third grade at Maple Ridge Elementary. She came home with marker on her fingers, paper cuts, and stories about children who believed the world could be fixed with stickers. She wrote grocery lists on yellow sticky notes and stuck them to the fridge in her neat schoolteacher handwriting. "Milk, dish soap, call plumber. Tell Jack to eat something green." I would pretend to be offended. "Potatoes are green if you leave them long enough." She would wrinkle her nose. "That is not the argument you think it is." We married in the fellowship hall of the church, where I tuned the upright piano twice a year. My mother wore navy blue and cried through the whole ceremony. Afterward, she hugged Claire so long that Claire looked over Mom's shoulder at me, helpless and happy. Claire helped me through it. She organized medications, wrote questions for doctors, made soup Mom could barely swallow, and sat beside her when I had to work. My mother had never been easy with affection, but she let Claire brush her hair. "You picked a steady one," Mom told me once, her voice rough and slow. "I know." She looked toward the kitchen where Claire was rinsing bowls. "Don't make her carry what you won't name." I thought she meant grief. After the funeral, our house became quiet in a different way. Not peaceful, hollow. Claire tried. She made dinner. She touched my shoulder when passing behind my chair. She asked if I wanted to talk. I usually said I was fine, which was a lie, so old men in my family probably whispered it in their sleep. I went to work, came home, washed dishes, paid bills, and kept moving because moving was something I understood. Somewhere in that silence, Claire began to disappear. She came home later from school. "Parent meetings," she said. "Reading assessments. A student having trouble at home. All possible. Teachers do work no one pays them for and then apologize for being tired." Her phone started spending more time face down. She took calls on the back porch in November cold, arms wrapped around herself, voice low. Once I opened the door to ask if she wanted her coat, and she startled so badly the phone slipped from her hand. "Sorry," she said. "It's just work. On a Sunday, a parent." I nodded. Because trust looks a lot like choosing not to ask the next question. Then came the laundry room. I was carrying towels when I found her beside the dryer with old papers spread across the lid. There was a black and white photograph on top, but she flipped it over before I could see it clearly. "What's that?" I asked. "Nothing. Too fast." Then she smiled too wide. "School stuff. On Mom's old stationery?" Her fingers pressed down on the papers. I didn't realize this was hers. I should have asked then. I should have said, "Claire, you're scaring me." Instead, I set the basket down and pretended I had come in for detergent. The mind is a terrible storyteller when it is afraid. It leaves out mercy. It adds shadows. After that, I began collecting details like evidence, a number saved in her phone as M. A yellow envelope in her teacher bag unmarked, a note on the calendar beside the fridge. Thursday, Harbor Inn, 7:30. When I saw the note, Claire was upstairs. I stood in the kitchen with the refrigerator humming against my leg and felt something inside me go still. At breakfast, I buttered toast I did not want. "Anything going on Thursday?" I asked. Claire kept her eyes on her coffee. "Grades. I'll probably stay late." "At school?" "Yes." She lifted the cup with both hands, though it was not heavy. That should have been the moment I told her what I had seen. But some ugly part of me wanted to be proven right before I risked being wrong. I hated that part, but I fed it anyway. On Thursday, I parked 2 streets away from Maple Ridge at dismissal. Children poured out in bright coats, backpacks bouncing. Claire stood by the curb, smiling at parents, bending to zip a little boy's jacket, waving until the buses pulled away. At 6:58, she left in her blue Subaru. I followed. She drove past the grocery store, past the church, past the road that led home. At the Harbor Inn, she parked behind the office. I pulled into the dark lot across the street and killed my headlights. The man was already there. He got out of an old pickup, took off his cap, and stood with both hands at his sides like he did not know what to do with them. Claire walked toward him slowly. They spoke for maybe 10 minutes. The rain made it hard to see their faces, but I saw her wipe her cheek. I saw him hand her the envelope. I saw his hand lift, hesitate, and settle on her shoulder. Then the hug, not romantic maybe, not exactly. But grief and intimacy can look the same from across a parking lot when your heart has already made up its mind. Claire opened the fridge, closed it without taking anything out, and turned to me. Jack? I looked up. Have you ever felt like someone was trying to protect you and hurt you at the same time? It was such a strange question that for 1 second I nearly answered honestly. Then I saw that man's arms around her. No, I said. I usually know which one it is. Her face changed, just a little. I'm tired, she whispered. Then sleep. She went upstairs, and I sat in the living room with the television off. At 2:17 in the morning, her phone lit up on the coffee table. I shouldn't have held you like that. I just didn't know how else to say I was sorry. My body went cold. A minute later, another message appeared. He deserves to know, but I understand why you're scared. I stared until the screen went black. In the morning, while Claire was upstairs getting dressed, I found a folded receipt in the pocket of her damp coat. 2 train tickets to Chicago for Saturday, too. I stood entryway with her coat in my hand. I imagined her packing a small bag. I imagined the man waiting at the station. I imagined myself coming home to the sticky notes gone from the fridge. By the time Claire came down, I had placed the receipt and a photograph of her message on the kitchen table. She stopped when she saw them. The house was very quiet. How long? I asked. The color left her face. Jack, how long? She looked at the receipt, then at my phone on the table, then at me. It's not what you think. I laughed once. It sounded nothing like me. That is what people say when it is exactly what someone thinks. No, please, I need you to listen. Who is he? Her mouth opened, closed. Who is he, Claire? His name is Michael. The name did not mean anything to me, which somehow made it worse. Do you love him? Her eyes filled. No. Did you sleep with him? No, she said it, quickly, firmly. God, no. Then explain the motel. Explain the envelope. Explain why you lied to my face. I can't explain all of it yet. All of it yet. I made a promise. The word promise landed between us like a drop plate. To him, she did not answer fast enough. I nodded slowly. Get out, please. I want you out of this house. This is our house. Then I'll leave. No. She pressed her hands to her mouth. No, don't do that. I had never seen Claire look afraid of me. Not physically. Never that. But afraid of what I had become in front of her. A man who would rather burn the room than sit in confusion. She reached for her wedding ring and twisted it, a nervous habit she had when making decisions. For one awful second, I thought she was going to take it off. She did not. I was wrong to hide it, she said. I know that. Hide what? She looked toward the window. A yellow school bus passed our house, brakes squealing softly at the corner. Ask your aunt about the summer of 1986. I stared at her. What? Asked Diane. And then, if you still want me gone, I'll go. She picked up her bag with shaking hands. At the door, she turned as if she might say something else. She didn't. When she left, the house did not feel empty. It felt accused. I called 3 times before Diane answered. Jack? Everything all right? No. My voice sounded raw. What happened in the summer of 1986? The line went quiet. Who told you to ask that, Claire? Diane sighed. It was not surprise. It was the sound of a door she had been holding shut for years finally wearing out. You should come over, she said. Tell me now. Jack, tell me now. For a while, there was only the television and her breathing. Your mother had a baby before you, she said. I sat down because my legs forgot their job. What? She was 17, maybe 18 by the time he was born. It was before she met your father. Our parents were hard people back then. There was no money, no patience, no room for shame. That was how they saw it. I stared at the sticky note on the fridge. Dish soap, batteries. A boy? I asked. Yes. What happened to him? He was adopted. His name? I don't know what his adoptive parents named him. Your mother called him Matthew for 3 days. Then the papers were signed. My throat tightened. Why didn't she tell me? Because she was Ruth, Diane said. Because your mother could carry a mountain if admitting it was heavy felt like weakness. I closed my eyes. The photograph Claire had hidden. The old papers. The envelope. Did Claire know? She called me 2 weeks ago, Diane said. She found papers when she was going through Ruth's boxes. A letter, a copy of something. I told her to leave it alone. Why would you do that? Because your mother asked me to. I looked toward the stairs, toward the bedroom where Claire had slept beside me, while holding a secret that belonged to my blood and my dead. What letter? Your mother wrote one near the end. She gave it to me after the stroke, when she could still get a few words out. She said if you were happy, I should not be the one to ruin it. She said past was not a bill you had to pay for her. She met me at the door in slippers. On her kitchen table sat a shoebox tied with string. Your mother made me promise, she said. My mother is gone. Diane flinched, and I was sorry as soon as I said it. I know. A hospital form. A social worker's letter. A black and white photograph of my mother at 17, standing beside a young man with dark hair and a nervous smile. There was also a letter in my mother's handwriting, shakier than I had ever seen it. Jack, if you are reading this, then someone decided you needed the truth more than I needed to be obeyed. I had a son before you. I loved him. That is the part I need you to know first. Not the shame. Not the fear. I loved him. I let other people convince me love was not enough to feed a child, and maybe they were right. But I have lived long enough to know being right does not keep you warm at night. I did not look for him because I was afraid he would hate me. Then I was afraid he would not. Both seemed more than I could bear. If your life is good, do not break it open just to forgive me. But if he ever comes looking, give him my name. Give him my songs. Tell him I was a coward and a mother at the same time. Deanne placed a hand on my shoulder. I wanted to pull away, not because of her, but because kindness felt dangerous. If someone touched me, I might come apart. What did Claire do wrong? Diane asked quietly. I folded the letter along its old creases. She lied, yes. She let me think. I stopped. No, Claire had not let me think anything. I had built that room myself and locked myself inside it. She was trying to decide whether to break a dead woman's promise, Diane said. That does not make her right, but it makes her human. I left with the shoebox on the passenger seat and my mother's letter beside it. Claire's teacher bag was gone from the bench. Her mug with the little red apple sat upside down in the drying rack. A sweater hung over the back of a chair, one sleeve touching the floor. On the fridge was a sticky note in Claire's handwriting from earlier that week. Dentist Tuesday, buy rice. Ask Jack if Sunday still hurts. I touched the paper with one finger. I called her. She did not answer. I left one message. It's me. I talked to Diane. I know about Michael. I know about the letter. I was wrong. Not about everything, maybe, but about the worst thing. I made your silence into a crime because I was scared. I'm sorry. You don't have to call me back tonight. Then I sat on the stairs and cried for the first time since my mother's funeral. I folded forward with my elbows on my knees and made sounds I would have been embarrassed to hear from another room. I cried for the brother I never knew existed. For the mother who had carried a ghost inside her. For my wife sitting alone somewhere because I had looked at her pain and called it guilt. The next afternoon, I drove to Maple Ridge and parked across the street before dismissal. When the bell rang, kids spilled out in bright chaos. Claire stood at the curb, hair pulled back, scarf tucked into her coat, smiling that tired teacher smile that gives away everything and nothing. She saw my truck after the last bus left. For a moment, she did not move. Then she crossed the street. I got out before she reached me. I'm not here to make you come home, she nodded. Her eyes looked swollen. I just need to say it where you can hear me, I said. I followed you. I looked at your phone, I went through your coat. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was punching you before I knew the truth. You had reasons to be scared, she said. That doesn't make what I did right. Claire wrapped her arms around herself. I should have told you when I found the papers. Yes, I kept hearing your mom, the letter, Diane. Michael crying on the phone because he had spent 30 years not knowing whose eyes he had. And then I would look at you eating cereal at the counter, barely surviving losing her, and I couldn't do it. I kept waiting for a gentle way. There wasn't one. I know that now. The motel? I asked. He didn't want to come to the house. He thought it would be disrespectful. I didn't want to meet at a restaurant where someone might recognize me and ask you before I could. The Harbor Inn has a diner next door. It was closed. We stood outside because neither of us wanted to sit in a room. The hug? Claire looked down. I told him Ruth had died. He knew. But hearing me say it, I don't know. He just folded. And I held him because there wasn't anyone else there. I nodded. The image that had burned me alive became smaller. Sadder. The train tickets. For you, she said. For us. To meet him in Chicago, I bought them, then lost my nerve. I don't expect you to trust Troy most of that right away, she said. That has hurt because she thought she was the only one who needed to earn trust. I'm the one who broke something too, I said. She did not correct me. Finally, Claire said, Michael still wants to meet you, only if you want to. I leaned back against the seat. Suddenly there was a man in Chicago who might have my mother's hands, her stubbornness, her way of humming when she was nervous. A man who had been born before me and erased from the family so completely that even I had become part of the lie. I don't know how to do that, I said. Meet him, any of it. Claire turned her head toward me. Then don't do it alone. That was not forgiveness. Not exactly. But it was a door left unlocked. In my coat pocket was my mother's letter, folded until the creases felt soft. Claire carried the yellow envelope. At Union Station, Michael was waiting near the old wooden benches with a small box under one arm. I knew him before Claire said his name, not because he looked like me. He didn't, not at first glance. He was taller, broader. His hair silver where mine was still dark. But when he shifted the box from one arm to the other, I saw his left thumb bend back a little at the joint, the same odd curve my mother had, the same one I had hated when guitar lessons became difficult at 12. He took off his cap. "Jack?" he said. His voice shook on my name. In reality, I stood in a train station with cold hands and said, "Michael." He smiled like the name hurt. We went to a diner a few blocks away, the kind with thick white mugs and waitresses who called everyone honey without thinking about it. Claire slid into the booth beside me, not too close. Michael sat across from us and placed the wooden box on the table. "I don't want money," he said before we had ordered. I blinked. He looked embarrassed. "Sorry, people ask. Or they assume. I just wanted to say it. I didn't think that. I wouldn't blame you if you did." Michael opened the box. Inside were photographs, a small silver cross, a folded adoption document, and a baseball card held together with tape. "My parents were good people," he said. "The ones who raised me. I don't want to make them sound like they weren't enough. They were. But there was always this blank space. I'd look in the mirror and wonder who gave me my nose. Stupid stuff." "It's not stupid," Claire said softly. Michael looked at her with gratitude that made my chest ache. She had been carrying him too. He turned back to me. "Was she kind?" "She was difficult," I said. Michael laughed once, surprised. "She was stubborn, proud, terrible at apologizing. She kept every receipt in case someone tried to cheat her out of 73 cents. She sang when she washed dishes but denied it if you walked in." His eyes filled. "She loved fiercely," I said. "Sometimes badly. Sometimes without knowing where to put it." Michael looked down at his hands. "I used to wonder if she forgot me," he said. I took the letter from my pocket. For a second, I did not let go, then I slid it across the table. She didn't. He stared at it but did not open it right away. His fingers rested on the paper like he was afraid it might vanish. Claire's knee touched mine under the table. A question, not a claim. I did not move away. Michael read the letter slowly. Halfway through, he took off his glasses and pressed the heels of his hands to his eyes. No one at the next booth noticed. People kept eating eggs. Coffee kept being poured. The world allows private earthquakes in public places all the time. When he finished, he folded the letter carefully along the same lines. "She called me Matthew," he said. "For 3 days," I said. He nodded, and that seemed to matter to him. That he had been named, even briefly. That he had existed in her mouth before he existed on paper. Not like brothers. That would be too easy and too false. We talked like men standing on opposite sides of a river, pointing out the stones that might hold weight. He told me about his adoptive mother, who made cinnamon rolls every Christmas morning. I told him my mother hated cinnamon but loved burnt toast. He told me he had 2 daughters. I told him I'd once wanted children and then got scared by how much love could cost. Claire mostly listened. Sometimes Michael asked her to fill in pieces because she had found him, called him, met him first. I watched the way she answered carefully, never making herself the center of a story that was not hers. Claire sat by the window. I sat beside her. Between us on the small tray table were 2 paper cups of coffee, both going cold. "I'm sorry you had to find out that way," she said. "I'm sorry I made you afraid to tell me." She shook her head. "You didn't make me. I chose badly. So did I." I rested my hand on the seat between us, palm down, not reaching. Just there, then Claire placed her hand over mine. Her fingers were cold. I turned my hand and held them. We still had to go home to the same kitchen table where I had accused her. We still had to talk about privacy, fear, grief, and the damage done by silence. I still had to learn that love is not proven by guessing correctly in the dark. But her hand stayed in mine. For years, I had believed secrets were buried things meant to stay underground. Now I think some secrets are locked rooms inside a house. They gather dust. They warp the floorboards. They make people walk carefully without knowing why. Opening them does not always save the house. But sometimes, if you are very lucky and very humbled, someone stands beside you in the doorway. Someone you hurt. Someone who hurt you. Someone still willing to look inside. Claire and I walked to the parking lot without speaking. At the truck, she paused, looking toward the dark road home. "What now?" she asked. I opened her door, then stood there with my hand on the frame. "Now," I said, "we stop letting dead people do all the talking." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded and got in. On the drive home, the heater clicked. The wipers dragged snow from the windshield. And the town appeared one porch light at a time. Our house was waiting at the end of a quiet street, small and imperfect, with a kitchen table that had seen too much and a fridge still covered in yellow notes. Claire reached over and turned on the radio. An old country song came through the speakers, scratchy and low. Neither of us sang. But when I parked in the driveway, we stayed there until the song ended.